Christian Indie Writers Show, where we encourage, inform, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. I am Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write in multiple genres, including Christian dystopian fiction.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction.
And thank you so much for joining us in this podcast and sticking with us through the technical difficulties that we've already had this morning. We just want you to know that whether you're watching this live or you watch it later, we just really appreciate you and your support. If you like this podcast, click below and subscribe so that you never miss another upcoming episode or anything that we do. We also appreciate if you tell all of your friends. This is the part of our show where we share with what is going on in our personal lives and our writing careers and just basically in general. And we call it the What's Up. So I'm going to start with Rhonda because I can. So Rhonda, what is up with you?
Well, I just decided a second ago that I need to start putting that in my bujo, that I need to decide what I'm going to talk about in my What's Up segment. That's something new for me.
Like 20 seconds ago, you decided this?
Yes. So let's see. There's not really a whole lot going on because I've really been focusing on writing this month. So what I've been doing, and this kind of goes along with the podcast, is I've been forcing myself to use Scrivener to just get used to it. And it is getting easier for me. And I am starting to see a lot of the benefits that I really couldn't get into my understanding in the past. So that's what's with me.
Awesome. How about you, Jamie? What's up with you?
Okay, so a few weeks back, my kiddos had a spur of the moment opportunity to head down to the city of Orlando and their amazing recreation center to make pinch pot animals. And when we showed up, I was so excited to learn that if moms wanted to pay the fee, they could also make a pinch pot animal. And they were glazed while we put like a paint glaze on them, and then they fired them for. So are you ready to see my animal?
Yes.
It's so great when you have to wait for it to be fired. So there's like 2 weeks between the time that you make it and the time that you pick it up. So here it is.
Yeah.
What is a pinch pot? I don't understand that term.
Okay, so you see how he's like dome shaped? Like I don't know if you can see because of the light.
Yeah, I can kind of see it. Yeah.
Okay, so you start with the shape of a pot. Like you make this little bowl, you pinch it. That's why it's called a pinch pot. And then you turn it over and you use your other scraps to make the extra parts. So this could have been like the body of like a cat, a cat, and then you could put a head instead of like I made my whole thing the head of my little piggy.
So
and
cute.
And so I was not aware of how the glaze was going to work or whatever. So the paint job is really not what I would have wanted, but he came out so good.
Yes,
and I really like
adorable.
him. I love his little ears, how they're like asymmetrical, and it's like if I ever thought I could even make back the price of one bag of clay, I would take a throwing class. So tomorrow, I love all of that stuff. Once upon a time, I researched buying a kiln, not happening in this life.
Right.
So I do really, really love working with clay. So it was just so satisfying to make him and then pick him up. So that's my What's Up for this week.
So did you get to do throwing too, or just the pinching?
No, it was just a pinch pot class, but we went and washed our brushes in the throwing room, and they were having some kind of an open make or whatever. People were there doing all of the spinny, shapy, and I was like, oh, I'm so jealous of all you people. Mm-hmm. So in my empty nester years, I'm sure at least one throwing class is going to be heading my way.
That's awesome.
Maria wants to know what you're going to use it for.
It's a decoration. It's just going to sit here and look at me and remind me that someday you will make a vase to match me, or a pot.
A pig vase.
I wonder if any of our viewers have done any clay work.
Yeah. Is that a pottery? I know that Barb does painting. I don't know. Does she do any clay?
She was a potter. That was when she first got married, she owned a ceramic shop and she taught ceramics classes. And then she got into throwing, and I've got a few of her pieces here.
She owned a ceramic shop?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Does she still have her kiln?
No. When they moved to Ryder City, they
Oh yeah. I mean, imagine moving that thing and then having to wire your house to like use it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Maria
You know,
says
back
that it
in
looks
the old
awesome
days.
and cute.
Oh,
So,
thanks, Maria. Yeah, I like him. He's cute. What, Tina?
Back in the old days, I used to just make like a brick stove. Like you could just go in the backyard and like make your own kiln with you could build a fire in there, with wood and stuff.
Yep.
all right. Well, what
Amy
about you?
doesn't seem impressed.
What about you, Tina? What's up?
Oh, well, I had a week. That's one thing about it. It was 7 days. It's kind of been a rough week around here.
You have car trouble, right?
Yeah. Well, my husband's stepfather passed away. And so there's like a whole. If you have stepchildren, and you have no blood relatives, please make somebody legally able to get your body after you die.
Because Bob's mother has passed away, and so
Right.
there's not really any relationship between Bob and his stepfather. It's not like they were close, like a father and son.
But his sister did have a relationship. She actually lived with them. So, it's not like they just want to say, okay, just keep his body, you know?
Yeah.
But it's working out. We found a grandson, so.
Okay.
But and then my transmission died on me. So if everything comes in threes, we're still waiting on the third thing.
Well, maybe we can count the technical issues of the podcast
There we
this
go.
morning, and now you're all set.
And my daughter had to rush her cat to the vet yesterday. Maybe that's.
Oh no! Is the kitty okay?
They couldn't find anything wrong with him other than he's 16.
Oh.
And he won't eat. He stopped eating, so they're not sure. They gave him some appetite stimulants. She should have just. Never mind.
All right. Well, Tina says that I have my work outline on index cards, and last night I spilled water all over them. Oh no! So today I'm transferring to a outline, so I don't have to worry about it.
Gina, don't drink next to your computer. You have a little end table next to you, and you put your water cup on the end table.
No, that's really funny she says that, because last night, okay, so I never delete anything. I'm a technology hoarder. And so I've got threads from my husband and my mother texting that somehow they totally got deleted, just everything, like years worth of text. And so I was devastated. And I was just thinking this morning how I've been using Scrivener, and if I wanted to keep using my index cards too, because right now they're still pretty even. And her saying that's sort of the opposite of what I'm thinking right now, is that if I've got a hard copy, I don't have to worry about technology and my stupid fat fingers deleting everything.
Mm.
Well, we're going to talk about Scrivener here in a little bit, and how we each kind of use it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how mine is not. That won't happen with how I have my Scrivener set up. So that's a good thing, kind of a good segue. Real quick, my what's up was I was going to say something else, and then something else happened. Well, anyways, yesterday I did not go to office hours because all of a sudden it occurred to me that I had not gotten my license plate, the registration for it. My birthday's in May.
Wow.
And in Michigan, you do it on your birthday. But in my defense, my car was broke down in May, and my aunt that's when I was taking her to all of her appointments. And so she just had me keep her car at my house because she was living with my parents. So she didn't want it left there. So I was driving her car. And then at some point in the summer, we got my car fixed. And then I just completely forgot about it. And so I had to do that real quick before I got a ticket. And then, so then I did that. I ran the errands I had to run, and I came home because I'd left my laptop at the other house, at my aunt's house. And I thought, I'm going to grab lunch and then I'm going to go. While I was here, my dogs start going crazy nuts. And I look out, and there's this dog in my front yard, just this big dog. And it just kept staying in my front yard. So I locked my dogs up so they wouldn't run out. And I opened the door, and the dog walked right in my house.
Wow.
And this was a bit, and at first my heart's like, oh, I grab a hammer in case because you don't know it. I don't know this dog. And I read its collar, and it was microchipped, and it had a a dog license. So I I contacted the microchip company. They won't help you. Like they only if you know the microchip number. I don't have a microchip scanner in my house, so I had to call the Humane Society. Nobody would pick up the phone at the Humane Society. Nobody. So then I had to call Animal Control. Animal Control is very nice, but they were busy. Like they couldn't come get the animal, but they were willing to give me this person's address, their phone number, everything. I'm like, well, that's kind of scary. They would just hand that information out because I had his license number. So it was a couple streets over. I drove over there, no answer. I come back. I don't know what to do. My dad's like, I don't want you going to some stranger's house. So I had to wait for my husband to go. So meanwhile, this big dog is in my house making himself comfortable. Like, and then so I'm like, all right. So he laid on my floor. I let my dogs out. They got to know each other. Everything was good. So I sat down to eat my lunch. Apparently this 140-pound English bulldog decided, or whatever he is, that he was a lap dog. And so all day long, this dog stayed in my lap. I'm not willing to leave my house with this because I don't know what this dog's going to do. I don't even know. So I babysat this dog all day long and never got out to get my laptop. So basically that was my day all day. And it was a nice old man that it was a whole long story. We finally got the dog back to him and my girls were in tears because they'd already fallen in love with this dog. And I'm like, I am not keeping this giant oversized like stinky dog. I love it. He was so sweet, but he shed everywhere, like the little hairs, and I have major allergies. By the end of the night, my eyes were all red and itchy. So were my little Chloe. She was all like red and itchy. But before he left, he put his front paws on me like he was hugging me goodbye. And I was like, are you serious, dog, right now? You're killing me. So anyways, that's my what's up.
Maria,
Dogs
here
are such a gift from God that they are just how they are.
they're amazing. We only have the number on our licenses here.
Right.
And people can get like a little vanity one with the dog's name or their name or whatever on it. But
Yeah, I put a vanity one on my dog that runs because and it has saved the day. They call me up and they say, hello, we saw your dog running down 114 or whatever.
Right.
So
this one did not have a phone number on it. It did have it had 3 tags, and I found out from the Animal Control that his name was Sergeant. Well, then when my husband got home, he looked at him and he's like, well, Jen, so the old man we found out is a former Marine, just like my husband. And the third tag was the symbol that the Marines have for sergeants. So my husband knew right away. He's like, this belongs to a Marine.
now I want to interview this old guy.
I know.
What his story is. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So Maria shared her what's up. She said, carrying on with her Nano project and also been working on a book trailer. Yay. For my second novel to drum up awareness for it, especially with Christmas coming up. Is your second novel Christmassy? I didn't know this. I've not read
Maybe she
anyone
thinks
else's
it
work
might
for
be a
lover.
good stocking stuffer.
Right. Let's see. Okay. Well, moving on, we kind of hinted at it, but today's episode we are calling The Final Push. We are only 8 days away from the end of Nano, and some of you might be kind of dragging like I am and thinking, well, I'm just going to give up because I'm not going to win. And I already had a conversation with the ladies like this earlier this week, like, oh, well, I'm just going to give up on this Nano. No big deal. I've won other Nanos. And, they were encouraging, but also Jamie was like, you promised yourself this book. Like, you only have this many days. Just keep working on this book, and whatever you get, which is so true. So we wanted to kind of offer that kind of encouragement with you as well. But in a special way, we wanted to specifically talk about the software Scrivener. We mentioned it a little bit last week, and we thought this would be a good time for us to talk about why you should continue with your Nano project. And does anyone want to share why you should continue your Nano project in relation to Scrivener?
Well, if you, just for being a participant in National Novel Writing Month, you get a 20% discount. If you should happen to cross the finish line with 50,000 words, you get a 50% discount. And I believe, in my opinion, Scrivener is very reasonable. I think it's only $20 in the first place. But to be able to get it for just $10, I think makes it very affordable for just about anybody. And it's a one-time fee. It's not like a monthly payment to where you're paying $5 a month until you've paid $500, 100 months from now. So anyway, that's why.
Yes, I just looked it up for Mac OS. It is $49.
It is.
It is, but if you get a
Oh,
half off, it's only 25. So even
Yeah.
if you pay full price for this, $50, it is completely worth it.
I
Now they have a new. It looks as if you can only if you have Windows, which is what I have. I have both, but I have Windows. It looks like you can only buy a combined Mac and Windows bundle, which is 80, but that may not be
Wow.
completely true. So I guess we should do a little bit more research before
What
we come here on
happened?
that. But
Because I remember, like, I did not pay that. I did not, and I'm running on Windows now. I know I got
Right.
mine on a Nano Win, but it was not that expensive.
so, Literature and Latte, which is the software company that has created Scrivener, has I think found that for updating for Windows, it costs them more. They have to keep working on Windows more. Where with the Mac product, it
Mm.
doesn't have as many changes. Is
Hmm.
what I've kind of gathered from what I've seen on that. So, because they are not charging like a subscription fee for this, which honestly they're kind of crazy for not doing that, because people would pay it. It is that good of a software, and if they would charge $5 a month, they would probably make way more. I'm sure they would make way more over the years than they do just by selling it outright for a small price. But even at $80, this software is for sure worth that, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So, any other comments before we move on to what we like about it? So,
Just that there are no, nothing.
okay. Well, there are a few things before we talk about our own specific experiences. We wanted to talk a little bit about the tutorial. Did any of you guys run through the tutorial that is built into the software? Which is, again, crazy that they have this great of a tutorial on how to use it themselves.
I did most of it or half of it, maybe. It's real. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty intensive.
Yeah.
Oh, I found it. I found Scrivener for Word only, $45.
Perfect.
Anyway, sorry.
That's great. I did.
Go ahead.
I did the tutorial as well, but like Christina said, I only did about maybe a third to half of it because it's very intensive. And once you get even a third of the way in, you get kind of excited about starting to put your things in there. At least I did, so that I kind of gave up on the tutorial. But if you're that kind of person who wants all the information, you're going to be very pleased with what they put out there.
Yeah, when we were planning this week's podcast episode, the ladies asked me, well, did you go through the tutorial? Because part of the reason we're doing this is because I know Scrivener can do so much more than I have ever used it for. But since I don't know, and I never really think about just playing around with Scrivener in my free time, I just, have all these questions. And a lot of the questions that I have are answered in the tutorial. So I start to go through the tutorial, but like Jen said, it's kind of like a little mini, like it's very, very thorough. Now you can do kind of like a quick start tutorial, but I only got through a couple of pages before it was time to do this podcast. So my answer is sort of, I've started.
How about you, Rhonda? Did you look at the tutorial at all when you first got it?
When I first got it, I looked through it a little bit, but like you said, I wanted to get started right away. But recently, maybe it was last year's Nano, I was going to try using it again. And I watched a video on YouTube by another writer who was doing like a Cliff's Notes version of it. So I haven't done the actual tutorial.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that. Jamie, do you remember a couple of summers ago, you were over here, your kids were over here hanging out with my kids, and it was getting later in the evening. I came across a free webinar for Scrivener, and I made you sit through it.
Yes, and that's why in a different episode I called you like the Scrivener master, because you were so excited that you're like, you color coded all of your index cards. And
I took so many notes during that webinar.
Yes. And so I
You mean everybody doesn't do that?
Oh, man.
No.
Well,
Right.
I was going to put a link to the Windows version of Scrivener, but I can't figure out how to do chat with us. So anyway,
I will Google search it, right? They can find it very easily. And it's Literature and Latte is the name of the company. So if you search for Scrivener, then it will show up there for you.
So do we want to, because I'm talking about index cards and stuff like that. Do you want me to share my screen so people can tell what I'm talking about? Like,
should we, you can, but should we talk about alternatives really quick? Because I know that some people are not going to be interested in this at all, but I mean, what are some of the, well, no, let's talk about Scrivener first. I just got ahead in the
that's okay.
discussion. So yes, we're going to share Jamie's screen.
Okay.
We might share mine later. Now that we talked about the color coding, I'm kind of excited to share that actually, now that you say that. But
okay, so you see here along the side, does anybody else want to talk? And then I'll just move my cursor around.
I'm just going to read your story if you don't mind.
I know. Well, I was sneaky and I just put the sprint that we did the one time that you guys have already read.
You're terrible.
you are terrible.
I love the evil laugh, Jamie.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So anyway, as you can see here, there's all these little folders. I hope you can see. And then within each folder, there's a little, it looks like a teeny little piece of paper. So in each folder is a document. Now, I was really confused as to how to actually organize all of this. So does anybody want to talk about how they use their folders? I'm using them as chapters and scenes. Like this would be a chapter, and then this is a scene within each chapter.
Yes, that's exactly how I do it too. So a folder is in essence a chapter, and then every scene that you want to have can be within that folder. And each of the chapters, each of the folders, when you turn them into an ebook or a printed book, whether you do it within Scrivener or you put it into another software such as Vellum, it'll recognize each of those folders as chapters and will designate that with a number. There are ways to stop the numbering, but that's how it'll do it. Each of the scenes will just flow seamlessly within that chapter, and it'll put either 3 asterisks between each scene, or you can actually choose within other software systems like Vellum and probably Judo and all the other ones, to have something decorative go between there and pretty. And that's what I do. So if you have ever seen any of my books, whether ebook or printed book, all of that starts in Scrivener. All of the chaptering, all of the layout, it just starts in Scrivener.
That was some of the questions that I had. So for example, like my question would have been, if I compiled this, see how this just says chapter 1. Now, if I change this to say, Brownie's dog bit her or something, then would it say Brownie's dog bit her instead of saying chapter 1? Like, do these words show up in the compiled document? See, those are the kinds of questions that I have that are just not, in my opinion, simply answered by trying to dig around in a tutorial. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So the folders, those names show up. In the scenes, the name, whatever you name the scene, that does not show up.
So it won't say chapter 1, chapter 1. It'll say
Right.
chapter 1. Let me see. Do I have one that has many? See, this one has, but they're not in order. So.
And you can select, if you don't want the chapter names to show up, you can select them not to show up. I like to name my chapters. If you do chapter 1 as your name and you select that that's going to show up, then your document's going to say chapter 1, because Scrivener automatically will say chapter 1 unless you choose it not to. So I always name my chapters something like the beginning of the end, something like that kind of gives you a hint of what's happening in the chapter without telling you what's happening in the chapter. So then it shows up in my book as chapter 1, the beginning of the end.
Oh,
so you don't have to write chapter 1, chapter 2. I put a 1 and then what I think the name's going to be, just so I can keep things straight as I'm working. But before I compile it, which is what Scrivener calls it when you put it together as an actual document, before I compile it, I take the numbers out because I know that I can have Scrivener automatically enumerate in order the chapters.
And here's where it says compile right here. And what that means is you can't just print this. Like there's nowhere in Scrivener, just click, print your whole document. No, this is just like a workspace. And then you have to like turn it into a printable document by compiling. So those are the things that are a little bit tricky about Scrivener. But what's really cool about Scrivener is, let's say, oh no, all of this information in chapter 4 really needs to happen before the stuff in chapter 2. Look, I could just click it and pull it up and move it. So now my chapter 4 is above my chapter 2. You cannot do that with like WordPerfect. You would have to search and find, highlight everything, go back and find where chapter 2 is in your Word document. And now I don't know, Word might have like an outlining feature that I don't know about or something like that. But this was something that I thought was really helpful. And even all of these little extras down here. So I can take this and grab it and move it to this chapter instead. You see? So it's just very easy for me and someone like me who doesn't write in order and needs to be able to move things around quickly. This is really, really
And you
handy
should
and helpful.
click on manuscript and then click the note cards. Show them that.
I don't really remember how
in the middle, at the top of the page in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
The cork board.
Look at this.
Yeah. So if you like your index cards, there they are.
And you can move stuff around just like you could move stuff around.
Right. And if you type where Jamie is right now, where it says author's book or note, and if she clicks on the blue lines underneath that, you can type on there and it doesn't show up in your document. It's just notes for you. So you can type right there and say, like, I will type things like this needs to be edited, or I'll type things like I need to bring such and such character into the scene for it to make sense. Like, cause sometimes I have to work characters in earlier so they don't just show up all of a sudden at the end. You know, I have to so there are different things that I'll have to do as I'm going through the book, and I will put the notes in there so that all I have to do is like Tina said, is click on manuscript, and then I can see all my notes and go back and fix things.
And like you said, this does not show up in your document.
Nope. It's just for you to see.
And when you're doing like an audit of your manuscript before you start editing, that's a great place to put notes, like for each scene and chapter of like, okay, this is what I noticed and I need to go back during editing and fix it. That's a great place to put those.
So this is Rhonda's virtual note cards, kind of a thing. And then
but I can't steal them.
I get it.
You could just have a stack that you smell, and then just have all the writing on it.
Now that's the thought. That's the thought.
Scrivener, I had a lot of my stuff in this research folder. In fact, I moved everything into the research folder first, and then I plugged it in up here as I was working, right? But there is like a whole bunch of different places you can put things for research purposes that do not end up in your story. So you can do character profiles in this particular place. Here's a place to organize all of your research. There's front matter. This is auto-populated. I didn't put this stuff in here. So Scrivener gives this to you so that you can do your front matter in a separate spot. Just so much to this that I have not even explored.
And I use Story Genius. I use that way of outlining and plotting my story. And Story Genius has a template for Scrivener. So when you get the template, and then when you're creating a new document, you choose the Story Genius one. All like the little grid that you use for your outlining of each scene it's already in there. Like it's got all this stuff. It's really cool. And I'm sure there's other templates you could get.
Here is a feature that I like because I have my, I used to. I'm starting to actually put my content into my chapters. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of basic areas where I have content. And I want my novel to feel kind of balanced. So I want to make sure that I have kind of equitable amount of content in each of these spots. So I can click on this folder, for example. This is what I consider like the first part of my book. I can go up here and click project statistics. Now, for whatever reason, it always auto-populates with zeros. I don't know why, but then after a minute, poof, there it goes. Now it's showing right here that in this selection, I have 23,000 words. That's almost half of my novel. So I can tell myself, gee, this part of my book looks a little too heavy or whatever. So this is just an example of things that you can do. You can click on any document in the Scrivener, and then you can do that same thing, and it'll tell you how many words are just in that particular part that you have selected. So this particular scene in my prologue is 1,200 words. So those are just some things that you can do that I think are useful, even if you can only do the bare minimum because you don't have the time or the energy to go through some tutorial, right? Like I've already found this very useful, even though I haven't explored much of what they can teach you. So there's so much more.
Shall I show some color coding?
Yes.
We should tell Jamie how to do it on hers, and then everyone could watch us.
I think that would probably be like a whole nother episode. I think if we're going to do that, that's going to take a while. And I think that we're kind of running short on time. If everybody wants to see some of the color coding, how what I do and like how I use the color coding, we can, or we can save the whole
Yeah,
thing.
can you share your screen?
I can do that. So let's see, application window. We're going to go with, I think we'll do Sarah's novel. Let's look at this. Okay.
Gina says index cards that can't get soaked.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, but like Rhonda said, you do miss actually touching them, so I get it if you like that.
All right, so you can see here the colors along the side here. If you see blue, that means that it is from the man's point of view, which whatever my character in this one is Grant. If you see pink, then this is from Sarah's point of view. So that helps me when I look at it to keep it balanced, because sometimes I get writing and I'm writing only from one character's point of view because I just feel like I'm inside their head and I have to work on that. And then also sometimes if I'm struggling with a scene, sometimes it just needs to be from a different point of view. And so I will actually go in and I will change the point of view. But what you can see here is that I've actually color coded the scenes, not the chapters. Now, if I go in and I share screen for one of my other ones, let's just do that really quick. And we're going to pull up, let's pull up Esther. You'll see that differently. So Esther, you can see that it doesn't look like it's color coded over here, but that's only because I didn't select it for it to show up as in what they call the binder, which I probably should do that. But you see how in the corner here, there's all these different things in the corners. Esther's finished. That's why it's so color coded. Green means that it's both their perspectives, means two different scenes in the one chapter, one from his, at least one from him and at least one from her. Blue is from John's point of view. Pink is from Esther's point of view. And then you see the orange. Remember how we've talked before about how I outline and how I have disasters? I also do the color coding in here for the disasters so that I know, boom, this has to be something like that. Oh, I should have probably, see how they say first draft on them? Let me show you how that works.
While you're doing that, I use the color coding when I'm with my editing right now. So I have all the ones that need to be edited color coded red, and as I finish them, I'm changing the color to green. So then I can just open my Scrivener and look at it, and I know right where I am.
Nice.
That's a great idea too.
And so how nice if you're visually, a visual person to just be able to see the balance like that. It's really awesome.
Right. So I have to click this over here so you can see all, oops, that's not the one I wanted.
And, when you go through the tutorial, they give you a populated document. It's like someone has already written a book or whatever, and all of that is filled in just like it looks on Jennifer's, and it teaches you how to manipulate the text in the tutorial. It's an amazing thing that they've provided for you.
So if you look up in the corner here, the blue eye of here is just for your information, and you can see there's all kinds of things you can do. And see how this looks like a little note card up here in the right where my mouse is flipping around in here? It's the same as those note cards over there, and I can type in here again stuff that will not show up in my document but will give me notes. Where it says general metadata is where I have all of my different color coding, and you can change it to edit what you want. And then I can also have a status to do first draft, revised draft, final draft.
Nice.
And I use that to help me find what stage I am on each of those. So that's just a really quick snapshot of what this software can do for you. And I hope that it was enough just to kind of whet your appetite so that you think, yeah, I want to push through and finish this.
If you win Nano, you get it for half off.
It's a great deal at half off for certain.
And 20% isn't anything to sneeze at either.
Right.
No.
If you didn't win.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so thanks for showing me that, because I learned a little bit more just watching you quickly click through all of that. Thank you.
So real quick, let's talk about alternatives, because I know there are people that are like, I don't want to learn Scrivener. I want to learn something new, usually because they have something that they're comfortable with. That was me with Microsoft Word. So do you guys want to share what you've used before, what alternatives you have? We talked about note cards. Is there anything you guys want to share before I?
Oh, well, I use Google Docs.
Yeah.
In fact, my mom set up my Scrivener for me so that everything gets backed up to Google Docs.
That's what I was going to say.
We should talk about that.
So I will share real quick that for me, the only alternative to Scrivener was torture and chaos, because I was a Microsoft Word girl, and I've shared many times that my first novel, the first one I wrote that I'm still trudging through to edit, was at 120,000 words and wasn't finished because I just didn't know how to structure a story. Well, that 120,000 words was in Microsoft Word. So I spent a good month when I finally decided to get really serious with my writing, putting it into Scrivener and trying to organize it. And that's how I discovered what a mess it was. But while I was doing that, I started working on a contemporary novel because it was nano time. And I want to say somewhere between 11 and 20,000 words. And my computer decided to restart, and I didn't realize I hadn't saved. Because see, I'm bad. I'm that person that leaves their laptop on all the time, and everything is just always there. It auto saves, and then I will fix it and copy it. I was going to plan was what I had written was to copy and paste and organize it into Scrivener, but I hadn't done that yet because I had a lot of other things going on, and it lost everything. It was not in my saved. I had a friend who's very computer savvy. He's like, oh, I can find it. He couldn't find it. It was gone, absolutely gone. And I just gave up Nano that whole year. I just was done with it. So for me, it is imperative that I use Scrivener because similar to Rhonda, I have mine backed up to Dropbox. So when you set it up originally, and there are lots of videos out there that show you how to do this, mine is set up automatically to save to Dropbox. But if Dropbox falls off the face of the planet, guess what? It's also saved to my computer. So it automatically doubles the duty of saving. So I have it automatically saved to my laptop and it's saved to Dropbox. So I can go into any Dropbox and grab it off. So if my laptop totally dies, if it gets stolen, if it falls into Lake Michigan for some apparent reason, I still have it. Everything is on Dropbox. If something happens and Dropbox gets hacked and implodes and I can't get any of my stuff off, I still have it on my laptop. So that is like such a stress reliever for me to know that.
So this is interesting. Maria says she uses Word as an alternative. I have not used Word very much because I'm cheap. So I've used LibreOffice. I do have Word, I believe, on this machine. Can you drag and drop different sections of your book like you can in Scrivener? Because to me, that has been so helpful. And any other word processor that I have encountered, like Google Docs, I even just went over to Google Docs while you guys were chatting, and there is an outline that you can see in Google Docs, but you can't grab those sections and slide them up and down and move them all around as easily.
You can't compile it at the end either and have it all just make a book for you.
Right. So she says she has a free version of Word. Yeah, the trick comes when you go to turn your word process document into an ebook. And I think that that's something, if you haven't tried to do that yet, that also might color your perception on what's the best way to go as far as your actual creation station, so to speak, because compiling into an ebook is not as simple as clicking a button.
I really like the idea of saving Scrivener to Drive. I wonder if you're writing in Google Docs, can you just like put that into your, and it'll go into Scrivener?
Well, no, not quite. I've got a 2019 Nano folder that I save everything in Google Drive to. And then when I get into Scrivener, when I hit open, that's backed up to my computer automatically. So I just open a file from that 2019 Nano folder.
All right, we are running short on time, but just a couple more comments. Gina says that she used to be a total Word nerd, but now she really likes Google Docs because it's free and she can access it from any computer. Again, that's why I really like using Dropbox. And Maria says you can set up headings in Word and then swap the headings over, swap scenes that way, as I suppose you could create as many headings as you can for each scene, etc. So I guess if you know Word really, really well, then possibly you could do a lot with it. But there's so many other features that I think it's worth, for the cost, I think it's worth giving Scrivener a try. So I know that there are some that are going to watch the show even afterwards, and they are just like, I've always used this or I've always used that. I don't want to try anything new. Just give it a try. It's not that much money, and trust us, you're gonna love it, because Jamie did not love it, and she is kind of coming on board now. Wouldn't you say, Jamie, that you're starting
Yes,
to love it?
absolutely, because I am such a scattered person. I need all the help I can get to organize myself. But I want to say, too, there are many other things that you can win if you cross the 50,000 word point on NaNoWriMo. Discounts on all kinds of programs and software. Not any, we don't endorse or recommend necessarily them, but it's really worth it to give a good final push and try to get to those 50,000 words so that you can try some new fun things that may or may not enhance your writing career.
I totally, absolutely agree. All right. So this discussion, if nothing else, has showed us that we probably need to have another full discussion on different parts of Scrivener and what we use them for, because we barely touched the surface of this software and have so much more to say. But we do have to move on because it is now the time for the feeding of the backs.
Yay!
Yay. Feedback time. And here's a reminder how our feedback works here on the podcast. We submit a raw, unfinished, well, it's might be finished, it may not be, unedited piece that helps us develop a safe community with each other. And we hope that you have a safe community that you can share with as well. But because it's raw and unedited, we do not criticize each other. We only give positive and encouraging feedback. Today, instead of doing some word prompts like we normally do, we decided to do a little sentence starter. And so I'm going to have Jamie go first and have her share with us because she's the one that found the prompt. And we would have given credit to the website we found it from, but they are like no longer in existence. So
yeah, I think it was like Sarcastic Muse, which was a great, I so wanted to check out that website and then it didn't load. So I'm thinking that it's defunct. Wah wah. Okay, so the prompt was, she woke to the feeling she wasn't alone. She woke to the feeling she wasn't alone. So if you want to take 15 minutes and see what you come up with, here's what I came up with. She flung her arm out and, meeting no resistance, moved splayed fingers around on the cool sheet next to her. Bob was not there. She heard a rhythmic click and hum, the air conditioning unit in the corner of the room. The pieces of the puzzle came together. She was not at home. She was in Tampa, Florida, at the Budgetel off I-75. She sat up in bed and cast her eyes about the dimly lit room, using the power of reality to shake the feeling that still lingered that there was someone else there with her. Stella? She asked the darkness, but of course her daughter did not answer. She had not come along. Someone had to stay home and make sure JJ was fed and made it off to school. She flung an arm out to find the lamp she knew stood on the bedside table next to her. In her haste, she had not considered her ineptitude with her left hand, and there was enough flailing over the effort to get the lamp turned on that by the time the dim bulb transformed her small corner of the room into a pool of yellow shadows, her heart was racing and her breath was coming in quick, small gasps. Of course, the room was empty, save for the ubiquitous dresser television combination and a cheap brown laminate table and an office chair that leaned suspiciously to one side. Thank you, Jesus, she said, and kicked her feet out from under the puce-colored blanket so that she could slither in one smooth motion to her knees at the side of the bed. The maneuver managed to hike her shirt up on one side and bring the comforter down with her, but she was still too exhausted to do anything about it. She lay, arms flung out, face down on the mattress, trying hard not to think about bed bugs and expose TV shows with their bodily fluid-seeking black lights. Unable yet to breathe through fitted sheets and mattresses, she turned her head to the side and caught a little whiff of her morning breath. A little coffee will fix that, she thought, loath to the ideal of lifting a toothbrush. Jesus, she whispered again, and realized it was true. She wasn't alone in this room, on this trip, on this planet, in this life. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you.
Aww.
That ended so differently than I thought. So, gave me all the feels.
At first, I thought you had a camera in my bedroom this morning. For those that don't know, my husband's name is Bob, so I was like, oh.
Favorite word choice? Cute.
I really love how you like that. It could have been like really sweet, like a really sweet story to talk about her getting up and getting on her knees and praying, but then like you throw in like all the pessimism in the world, like into the story of like the bed bugs and the bodily fluids and
Yes.
But the pessimism so fits because it gave the feel of being in one of those kind of hotels, have all experienced that. And your description and descriptive words with the puce and the slither and like talk about her own movements of slithering and about like I could not write it down fast enough, but the television desk combo, whatever it was you said, like it was so descriptive and so good that it made
chair.
Yeah, so I was there. Absolutely. We've all been there. That was so well written, Jamie, in a sprint. Golly, you're amazing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I really like her whole attitude, like she's relying on Jesus, but like she sees the world at the same time, like all of the crap, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, she's pretty broken.
All right. Well, how about Rhonda? How about you follow that up for us?
Sure. My 185 words should go quickly.
That's all right. They're always good words. So I don't know why you complain about the numbers.
Well, one thing I've learned about myself is that when I try to write in my story, it stifles me when I try to do these sprints for this. So I think I will continue on in the future, just whatever comes to my mind, regardless of whether I think it'll fit in the story or not, and then see if it'll fit after it's done.
Okay. Stifle is an amazing word and very useful.
It is. I use it a lot. I do it a lot.
We're all such word nerds.
Yeah. All right. She woke to the feeling she wasn't alone. She cracked one eye open just enough to look for moving shadows. There were none, but she became aware of the unmistakable smell of that cologne tickling her nose. Gary. His back was to her. Is he looking through my mail? Incredible. Stealthily, she pulled the lever on the old recliner she'd fallen asleep in and allowed it to propel her to a standing position. She held the still rolled newspaper over her head, intending to hit him with it if she had the chance. The commotion she made and the distance between them gave him enough warning to turn in time to see her intentions. He smiled and pulled the newspaper out of her hand. Come on now, Marina. What's this for? He unrolled the newspaper and sat in the recliner she just vacated. He snapped the paper open and looked at her over the top of it. What are you doing in my apartment? She stood there, tense and angry. How did you get in? Her cheeks were throbbing and sweat formed under her bangs.
No, it can't be over.
My gosh, so good.
Has everybody had a recliner that would just rocket you out of it?
No, but I wish
I'm
I did
sitting
now.
in one right now.
Yeah, and like when you let the lever down, I can hear the noise it makes. It's kind of like a chung kind of sound. And you
the
go,
spring,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. He's looking through her mail. She's gonna hit him over the head with the newspaper. I love that. Oh, I really like this scene.
Yeah, so great. Out of everything you in it, I love it. So, do you think this might like springboard into something more? Like you might continue writing this?
Yes, this is definitely going to be a scene. I wasn't really sure how the scene was going to go, but now I've got a pretty good idea.
Okay, are these side characters or you're like, I don't know who they are in the book?
Marina is the main character and Gary is her ex.
Oh.
That's right. I remember that. Awesome.
Looking through her mail.
Yeah.
I'm a little disturbed how we got in the apartment.
Yeah, so is she.
Yeah.
Figure that out.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, Rhonda wants to know too.
Yeah.
Let me know when you figure it out.
Yeah, that's the beauty of a sprint.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go next so that I'm not like, talky. Oh, I'm down here. I forgot. I'm on my other laptop for this. Okay, so one more thing. I also love that like your character was in something other than a bed because I thought like we're all going to be getting out of bed for this. So that was really creative. That was good. Okay. She woke to the feeling she wasn't alone. The room felt warmer than usual. Winter had already hit Michigan and hit it hard, but this wasn't the normal dry heat associated with the old gas furnace that heated her 1970s ranch. It was a moist, heaving heat. Lindsay sat straight up in her bed. "Marcus!" she screamed. In the distant dark, the sound of her husband's bare feet running down their hallway penetrated the quiet of the winter night. Marcus rushed through the open door of their bedroom and flipped on the lights, revealing to both Lindsay and Marcus the beast in her bed. Lindsay flipped her hand over to the direction of the moist heat and scowled at her husband. "You left the door open and your new friend found his way onto our bed." Marcus smiled. "I see that." She crossed her arms. "Get him out of here." Aw, come on, Linz. He isn't hurting anything. He just wants to cuddle. She lifted an eyebrow. If you don't get him out of here immediately, he won't be the only one being denied cuddles in this bed. Marcus threw his head back and laughed. Okay. Come on, Sergeant. The old dog lifted his sleepy head and stared at Marcus for a moment before dropping it back onto Marcus's pillow. Marcus laughed again. Lindsay did not. Come on, boy, Marcus coaxed, tugging on the old English bulldog's collar. Let's get you a treat. At the word treat, the massive mutt quickly jumped off the bed, jostling the entire bed and Lindsay with it. He ran ahead of his new master toward the kitchen. Marcus smiled sheepishly at his wife. He really likes you, you know. She sighed. I guess I'm just a magnet for stinky, slobbery men who snore. She sighed. She again lifted an eyebrow at her husband. Marcus stood over the bed and leaned down over his wife. Lindsay laid back and he placed both hands on either side of his wife's head. You really are quite irresistible to us, dear. He placed a kiss on her lips. I'll put him in the crate before I leave for work. 3, 2, 1.
Yay! I think you like Sergeant.
I did
do
like
too.
Sarah. No, I did. He was a good boy. He
Yeah,
was
he just-
huge. Like when he stood, his paws were on my like shoulders.
Wow.
He was huge, but he was a sweet boy, and he was really old. Like they said, he was like 12 years old for a big
Wow.
dog. That's old.
Yeah.
And so I did like him. My allergies just did not, and he
Okay,
belonged
now
to
I'm
somebody
all
else.
sad because I'm like, I really hope that, I don't know, I hope the dog outlives that old man because, like, do you know what I'm saying?
So that they
I'm
bring him
that
back to
would be
us.
so hard for him to go, like, whatever. I just can't even go there right now.
I know.
Oh.
All right, Tina, it's your turn.
Okay. I have no introduction to like speech or anything. So here we go. She woke to the feeling she wasn't alone. The full moon shining through branches cast strange shadows on the wall. Penny pulled the covers up over her mouth and nose. She should get up and close the curtains, but the thought of what might be lurking in the yard kept her frozen to her bed. The October wind rocking the tree outside her window made a whistling sound in the places it found its way through the seal around her window. You can't keep me out, it seemed to be bragging. The tree branches were completely void of leaves, and the shadows on the wall looked like a monster with spindly arms waving at her. She wanted to pull the covers over her head or squeeze her eyes shut, but she was too terrified. Then she heard the squeak of her closet door. Was somebody there? Or was it just the shifting of the house, usually imperceptible but now pronounced due to the terror in her gut? Penny thought about crying out for her mom, but then whoever or whatever was in her closet would know she was onto them. If she jumped from the bed, flew across the room, and turned on the light, would the monster disappear? Something made a rattling sound from beneath her bed. Penny's heart raced even faster, and she swallowed the scream trying to escape her throat. A whir of black and white preceded the weight of the creature as it jumped onto her bed, landing on her legs with a heavy thump. The scream she'd been holding in found its way out and permeated the room, flowing out her door and into the rest of the house. It only took a moment for her mom to fling open her bedroom door and turn on the light. "Penny, what is it? What's wrong?" asked her mom. Penny could only point toward her feet, and when her eyes followed, there sat Binky, her brother's pet rabbit, glaring at her with utter disapproval for having screamed.
Awesome.
Oh, my word.
I love the personification that you used throughout this. The wind talking, the spindly arms of the tree. Really good stuff.
The best
Yeah.
part of your story was watching Rhonda's face as it got scarier and scarier. Like her eyes got wider. She's like, "Oh no, a scary story." Oh, it was so amazing. But you did such a good job of setting the vibe for a creepy, scary, this is going to be something that eats her. Really, really good descriptor. I love the wind teasing you. I can find my way in. I love that. Very, very good.
When you described the scale around the window, it gave me chills. And then the closet, I got chills again. Oh my
Oh,
word.
wow. That's awesome.
And anyone who has a pet rabbit knows it will eat you.
Yep.
It will come after you if you don't do what it says.
Oh, blimey. That was tense, Maria said. That's awesome.
Oh, somebody said blimey about one of my stories. My life is complete.
I knew you would appreciate that. Yeah, because Tina's a huge Anglophile.
Right. Great writing and great conclusion. Agreed.
Thanks.
All right. Good job, ladies. All right, so now it's time for us to visit our accountability corner, where we check in with one another and make sure that
I
we
really
are
have to
each
go
moving.
now.
Oh, I thought you were like, what? So since you said
Yeah,
that, guess who gets
we
to go
missed
first?
it. Yeah, we missed it last week.
We did.
So
I
because I was
know.
thinking, like, how did I do on my goals from last week? Oh, we got to skip accountability corner last week. So Tina's going first.
Tina's going first because she spoke up first. So
Yeah, I'm an utter failure.
What do you
Oh,
mean?
no, you're not.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten much done. So
Well,
I think my goal 2 weeks ago was to be in Anchorage, and no, I'm not. I'm not there. So
well, you know what? Office hours kind of fell apart this week, didn't they?
Mhm.
Like all of us can say that we were not as diligent about attending as we should have been for whatever reasons. Like one day I was up really late the night before and had to sleep when we were supposed to be having office hours, which is not a very good excuse. And then if any of us sort of treat the office hours like they're skippable, it's very tempting for the rest of us to be like, oh, well, then I won't show up either. And so we all sort of collectively share a little bit of the blame for your lack of progress this week, Tina, I have to say.
well,
But you're
I kind of
saying,
worked on it outside of that.
yeah, so what
But I didn't.
happened to you to where you just didn't give your nano project any attention?
There was just so much other stuff going on, and I let myself get distracted. So, I mean,
So
it
what's
wasn't even more important. It was just little stuff.
What's your goal for next Friday then?
Well, I'm definitely going to be in Anchorage next Friday.
Physically?
One or the other. If the story's not there, I'm going to get on a plane. There we go.
Now, next week is Thanksgiving. So don't give yourself too big of a goal that you cannot reach, considering that family time and all that. So
If I actually do work an hour a day, I can get there. Like,
okay, an hour a day. That's a very good goal. All right.
all right, I will go next because I'm pretty much in the same camp as Tina. Like I did not. My goal that I had set was I was going to double my productivity that I had before, and I did not. But I pretty much have met the same amount of productivity. But I think an hour a day is a great goal. I know I can commit an hour a day. I don't know how much that will give me, but and knowing that I can't Thursday, so I'll have to do it in 2 hours or something on one of the other days. But yeah, I know I'm not going to win Nano this year. That was pretty obvious from the very beginning, almost immediately for me. But I know I can do much better than what I have been doing. But what I have done, I'm really happy with, and I'm really loving these characters. So I'm glad that you guys encouraged me not to run away from this and to stay focused on it. So yeah. All right, how about you, Jamie? What's your accountability?
Well, I did get all of my pieces and parts into Scrivener, so I'm very happy about that. And also I think everything is kind of in the right spot. And so I've started the process of actually going in and sort of editing. So for example, my prologue, I went through and read it and started to finesse and make sure that it was complete as far as a first draft goes. So I'm very happy with my progress, although like the rest of you, I could have done so much more if only I would have made the commitment of time and energy. Absolutely, I can give an hour a day next week. And so I'm going to join the three of you to make that a goal, especially with the holidays. I'm going to be having family come and things like that. So, but I can do an hour because I'm an early riser. I can get up before my company and do an hour. So that's going to be my commitment.
All right, what about you, Rhonda?
Well, I don't remember what my accountability was 2 weeks ago, but I think last week I told Jamie I was going to just try to write every day. So I accomplished that. I really should probably set a word count goal because last week I was still working on outlining.
Yeah.
And now I'm working on, actually writing the story. So I'm going to say I'm going to try to write 2,000 words a day, including on Thanksgiving.
Nice.
And I've thought about that, and I think that I can do that.
I think you can too.
Yeah, it's a really good goal. It's very specific. It's very measurable. It's time sensitive, right? So good job. That's a great goal.
Thanks.
All right, great. Well, this was a really good episode, ladies, and I look forward to us talking about Scrivener again. And I look forward to next week. We will have a podcast of some sort on Friday, whether it's live or not. We have not quite decided that yet, But we will be here with you next week. And for those of our American listeners, we hope you all have a great and wonderful Thanksgiving. And until next time, may your pen be prolific and may your deadlines be met. And may all of your words honor Christ. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.